Alrighty, I'm going to hand straight over to Theo. This is our customer experience session. I know Theo has spoken to me a few times about how he runs things for his main business, Swimtime, and how he uses software that he actually owns himself anyway to do things a little bit differently, right, Theo? I think we'll talk about that in a second in terms of what traditionally activity providers have done or certainly do still do. So we're going to talk about that, data, technology, automation, and actually how that enhances customer experience, not takes away from it, which can be sometimes an argued point, I think, but Theo's going to demonstrate what he does and do it well. So please, like I say, guys, please ask questions on the chat function if you need to. We'll get through them during the session or at the end. And yeah, thank you for joining us. And yeah, Theo, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy. Hi, everybody. Yeah, apologies again for those of you who joined me last week. Yeah, that was a bit of an interesting one, and the irony was not lost on me. Sorry. One of my team just walked straight into the room. Love it. The irony wasn't lost on me in terms of everything that went wrong, but we're going to move forward. So today is all about customer experience and a bit of a different perspective on how you can look at things. I appreciate the last few months have been really traumatic for all of us, myself included. I'm going to be sharing a little bit later on the exact financial impact for us. So I'm more than happy to share that, and I'll show you what that's mean for us. But hopefully today is about giving you some things to think about that can help you just perhaps reinvent and think about how you might be able to come forward out of this and have a really positive outcome. So jumping straight into it then. Everything you're going to see today, and I really wanted to stress this, is by a really small team. So some of the concepts that you're going to be hearing about might seem perhaps a little bit crazy or maybe like it requires a lot of money and all the rest of it, and it doesn't necessarily. Some of the things we're going to talk about are a bit more sort of hardcore, but there's a huge amount that can be done for relatively low cost and for a really small team. So it's applicable for the smaller operators out there, right through to perhaps some of you who might have slightly larger businesses. And this is some of my dream team. We're doing a charity run in the Manchester 10K about 18 months ago, when all those things were totally normal. And so, yeah, I just thought I'd share that it's a really sort of small team that makes everything you're about to see happen. So some much needed context then. So to start with, I suppose we haven't really done that bit. The company that I own is called Swimtime, and we teach children to swim. So here in the UK, the national statistic is that a third of children are leaving primary school unable to swim 25 meters, which is a huge travesty in our opinion. And essentially what we're trying to do is make a difference. And everything that you're going to hear about today, and this is probably the thing I implore you to keep at the back of your mind, everything you're going to hear is about my approach and our approach as a team and as an organisation of how we deal with this issue. That's all it is. And we believe that this way is actually more effective to getting more children to swim. And I believe what I'm going to talk about is equally as effective or equally as valid for getting people to engage in football, maybe in dance lessons, maybe in children's activity groups. It's the same principle. So in 2016, I bought a swim school, but it's important to say that this swim school has existed for quite a long period of time. It was actually founded in 1998. By a couple called Barry and Linda Price. Some of you may possibly know them, based out of Manchester. So I bought an existing business that was all about, we're trying to transform it essentially. So we operate, let me think, out of around about 300 venues, around about 20,000 children every week when there's not a pandemic. And we are a franchisor. So I have a network of franchisees that sit beneath us and operate this great brand as independent business owners. And we rent pool space. So we don't actually own our facilities. We don't actually own the centres at all. We are in some ways limited to what aspect of that experience we can control because of it's a rental model. And that places some challenges on us as a business because there's a large elements that unfortunately we have to rely on trust with our partner venues. And so therefore we focus on very specific areas in terms of what we can try and improve and give our special sort of source to, I suppose, for want of a better phrase. So in terms of the model, how it works, it's highly agile. So there's a number of aspects of the business for our franchisees that are what we call variable costs. So as I said already, the pool rental is either a fixed amount or percentage. And what that means is, in the case of COVID, for example, because we weren't in those venues, we weren't paying, which is fantastic. The teachers are either, it's the franchisees themselves, which I know is very common in this space, or we employ self-employed teachers because they typically work for a number of different swim schools. It is quite a common model. So also that cost wasn't borne during COVID. So what that's meant is that actually we've been able to be relatively resilient, and as painful as it's been, our costs have been quite minimal during this time. I've gone through the figures already, and I suppose the key thing really is what we've tried to create, and what today is all about, sort of sharing how this all works, is how essentially the entire business is run by a computer system. That's the nub of it. If I was to be really direct, that is essentially what we try and do, which sounds, I'm sure, very frightening and very scary to a lot of people, but I'm going to show you a little bit about how it works and what that means and what the figures mean for people. And so my sort of role, or our role as head office, and this is the key thing really, is it's fundamentally about the customer journey. It's how do we get customers from A to B. So A being somebody thinks about having an activity lesson, and right through their whole journey with us to the point that they leave. And what we try and do is make that whole process as smooth, as effortless, as beautiful, as visually appealing as our lessons are. And that's fundamentally it. Yes, we lead on standards. We have our own training company. Yes, we do all the support stuff that lots of people talk about. But if I was to say what we're really, really good at, is getting people from A to B as efficiently and as easily as possible. So for me as a franchisor, and I'm going to sort of humbly suggest for you guys as potentially owners of children's activity operations, there are limits in reality to what you can influence. And certainly in my case, there's two fundamental things that I can influence in the business. The first is the brand, so that brand name that hopefully has some recognition in the market. And secondly, something that we call the method, which is something you'll come across in franchising, those of you who have come across this before, which is essentially how you make things happen. It's your magic sort of mix of, I think as KFC say there, blend of herbs and spices. It's whatever makes you special. And it's how customers work their way through whatever you do. And those are fundamentally only the two things that I as a franchisor or my team can actually have influence to. And the best way to think about it is not what you do. So it's not like, well, I teach football, I teach rugby, I teach dance. It's how. It's how you do it. And one of the hardest things that I've found with my franchisees to impart in them and to try and get them to move away from is that probably what you do, the football, rugby, dance, swimming, etc., probably isn't that unique. And I know that might come as a shock to many people who listen to this, but it's the cold, hard facts. If we take football as an example, you're shortly about to realise I know jack all about football, but there is only so many ways you can teach somebody to kick a ball. There is only so many ways you can teach somebody to swim. There are limits of innovation there. There are limits of uniqueness by the very nature of what it is. In terms of how you do it, so as in how somebody moves through your brand and the incentives and what they touch and feel and all the rest of it, now that's something you can create things that are unique about. That's where you can innovate. And that's what this session is all about, is the how. How do you get from A to B? How do you get people moving through your business and through your brand, whatever it might be? So to get us sort of into some kind of structure of how I'm going to tackle this over the session, what I've tried to do is break what I would say is a typical customer journey into 5 distinct stages. And I think this is transferable to any activity. I'm more than happy to be challenged and have a debate about it offline, but I think you'll find this is largely transferable. And there are 5 stages, and it starts from left to right. And we go from awareness, which is the kind of marketing activity, through to purchasing, the actual act of buying, delivery, the act of having whatever you bought happen to that child, recognition, which might be incentive schemes and badges and certificates and that kind of stuff, and finally exit. So this idea that somebody will eventually end their journey with you and go off on their merry way to what they want to do. And before I talk a little bit more about this, the place I actually want to start at is exit. And it's one of the most interesting parts of the customer journey to think about, because in the case of swimming, and I appreciate this might not be the case with all of your businesses, but it probably is. If somebody's leaving you, certainly the case of swimming, unless you've got something really horribly wrong, which does happen from time to time, the chances are you've probably done your job, and it's actually an event to be celebrated and not necessarily something to be feared or probably resisted. Because if we have somebody leave us and say they don't want to come anymore, they probably can swim and they probably feel like they've reached wherever they want to get to on their journey. And that's okay. That's actually a good thing. And actually, we've worked really hard on making the exit process as effortless as possible, because what it does is it builds goodwill and it builds happiness. And these people who exit happy typically become advocates. And it's the old adage of, if you go out for a good meal, I forget, so I'm sure somebody will chip in the comments or something, but there's a famous thing like, you'll tell 8 out of 10 people if it's a crap meal, and you'll tell 3 if it's a good one. Well, I can't remember the stats, right? But people are quite vocal, particularly parents are quite vocal about what's good, and they become really passionate about a great service and a great offering. And if you can get into that space, it's a really cheap way to market your business. And what we try and do is get those exits to actually fuel the joiners. And it's a really important part of the process. So in terms of the rest of this kind of schematic and talking around it, essentially, stages 3 and 4, most brands are fabulous at. They're really, really good. Most of you on this call, I'm sure, are brilliant at doing whatever you do. And certainly in the children's activity sector, there is an abundance of passion, an abundance of enthusiasm, and great stuff. And essentially, this whole methodology I'm going to be talking about today is all about empowering that. We're not trying to say that, a dance lesson is going to be taken off by a robot. We're not, or anything nonsense like that, or we're all going to be replaced by computers. That's not what we're saying. What we're trying to do is ensure that your practitioners, your teachers, your instructors, whatever, are completely focused on delivering that great experience without the distraction of sorting registers out, taking payments, yada, yada, yada. So it's about supporting. The other stages, 1, 2, and 5, in my opinion, should be an absolutely technology-driven solution first if you're going to be really, really slick. And it's about blending those two things together. So we've talked a lot about this word experience so far. And to me, and for Swimtime, it's absolutely everything. And it's sort of an easy way to put it, really. It's not just having the joy in the water and the happiness. It's trying to have that happiness and joy and delight at every part of the relationship with us as a brand. And we're far from perfect, but we've made some really big strides around that. And it's really built value in our business through to the point that we've actually been able to increase sort of prices quite steadily because people really value the overall experience for us. It's convenient, it's simple, it's easy, it's effortless. And for us, it's about creating that cohesive, brilliant experience. So, getting the nuts of it, then, what we were trying to do was, 1, build an amazing experience in and out of the water. So if that was transferable to you guys, in and out of whatever your session is. We wanted to develop amazing tools to help build our network of businesses. And we wanted to use aggressive automation, almost to the point of obsessing about it, to stop spending our time on mindless tasks like, all the admin, but instead focusing that on delivering an incredible experience. And that is essentially what we've tried to do. So this is where the story gets slightly controversial. I said this on a number of occasions, getting more and more in trouble, which is always amusing, but I can't hide away from my view. Particularly in our sector, and I mean this globally, a lot of suppliers think they're innovative. And I'm sorry, they're not. The standard, when I went to look to market to find something for us, I was absolutely appalled at the standard of technology in our sector. It is, in some, not exclusively, there are a handful of people that are doing a good job, but generally speaking, people are a long way behind other markets that our customers are dealing with. So for example, if you need to go buy car insurance, you can do it online in 60 seconds. The whole confused.com thing, Money Supermarket, all that kind of stuff. If you want to go and buy a holiday, you think of booking.com or Airbnb or airlines or all the rest of it. It's so easy. In our sector, if we're really honest, and I'm the honest mirror here for somebody who's come from a tech background, early part of my career, I worked for IBM. We're not. I'm sorry, we're just not. And so I was forced to kind of build our own solution, really. It wasn't something I set out to do. It's just, I was so despondent with what was on the market from kind of existing, supposedly professional, suppliers. And I was really disappointed. That's just the truth. That's my opinion. And so this is what we set out to do. A couple of things that here are relevant to franchising. So for those of you who don't know what MSF is, that stands for Management Service Fee. It's a percentage that franchisors take. Simple thing here. When I bought Swimtime, and there may be some franchisors on the call who watch this, and I know this goes on in franchising a lot. At the end of every month, we got a return, and the franchisee said, I'd sold £1,000 of stuff. Here's a check for your percentage. Happy days. That is mental. Like, you've no idea if it's true. It's really slow. It's really paper-based. Like, it's just an absolute mess. We now take that percentage at source. So what I mean is, when one of our customers buys something from our franchisees, our percentage is automatically taken away instantly and routes into our bank, and the balance goes to the franchisee's bank. Totally transparent. That's just one example of where you can completely transform something. A lot of the other stuff we're going to go through in a bit of detail in a moment, but just stuff like being able to book genuinely in 60 seconds. How many people can say that? There's not many in a lot of markets. We absolutely can. I'm going to demonstrate that to you in a bit. And I'm not going to go through this list, but basically a whole raft of how we manage the business. We looked at it and just thought, what are we doing? Why are we filling out that form? Why are we getting somebody to sign this bit of paper? This is crazy. Like, you could do all this, the booking process, you could automate things, it's stitching that stuff together. So I thought I'd get into the bones of it. I'm very happy to share. So to start with, I thought I'd put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to run you through, and when I try and narrate this, by the way, it's quite difficult because it is so fast. I'm going to show you how quick you can book a Swimtime lesson at the moment through our website. We don't use apps in terms of iOS or Android. Everything's web-based. So our systems will shrink down to whatever device they're on automatically, which is a technical decision that makes things very, very quick, but I'll run this through. So we have something called a activity finder, a lesson finder here, and the customer puts their location in, and then they can choose various categories of service and whatnot. They will get a series of locations that meet their requirements, and then a series of the lessons, including the prices, the dates, the times, the durations are all displayed, and whether you can book now or you go onto a waiting list. They click book, they get a price, and we start to capture a couple of key bits of information, so the name of the swimmer, what date they want to start, etc. We've either got their card on file or they add it again, and then they click review booking, and they can see a summary of all the information, including a little iCal thing that downloads their phone, and it is as quick as that. The minute they press that book button, they are booked. I think that demo is about 40 seconds, which is probably cutting you a bit fine because we put a few details in automatically. But our average booking is anywhere between, about 60 to 65 seconds at the moment for members of the public. It's insane. And it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. It means bookings come in day and night, 24/7. It's a very, very serious piece of kit. And we think it's a really great experience for our customers. So putting some of this into business context of why it matters. So before COVID, Swimtime had 3 years of growth, and I'm sharing some of the graphs there of some of our figures that we have. So one on the bottom right is customer acquisition, and you see that was sort of going up and up and up and up and up and up and up. We'd launched all these new products, like we got a fulfillment center up from scratch, we'd run loads of awards. It was all going really well. And I'm going to show you what happens to Swimtime with COVID. So pre-COVID, our platform was doing, you can see there, millions of pounds a year. And then it literally was like the patient is on no more. Completely zero income for us for, I think, 6.5 months approximately. So it really was incredibly painful. We're talking about getting on for 1.5 million down as a network. That's not us, that's the global network. And the right-hand side is our Google Analytics data. So the dotted line was before COVID, these amount of people coming on the site. So you see you're looking about anywhere between 3,000 to 6,000 a day were going on the site. And you see the dotted line goes, crashes down. And then right through the fixed solid blue line is May, June, July. You can see it's just bumbling along the bottom. Absolutely tragic. So I've been there. I feel your pain. It's been brutal. And so here we are. We're in second lockdown. What a time to be coming on for this slide. And I am optimistic. I really, really am. But this is a fight for survival. And one of the reasons I'm so passionate about giving these kind of talks, and I've been lucky enough to give them in some places all over the world, which has been very, very exciting. I'm very privileged, is I passionately believe in this sector. I absolutely believe that we can survive this. But to do that, we have to fundamentally rethink how we operate. We have to get up to times because the world is moving on. all this lockdown has done is accelerated this digitization. It's accelerated people's expectations, whether it's the rise of Zoom, the rise of e-commerce ahead of where it already was. This is a fight for survival. And these next few months are going to be critical between whether you make it or you don't. And I'm really happy to share what I believe is the formula to get there, because I think we're all stronger together. I want the sector to do well. And I believe it's down to the how. It's that thing that I talked about earlier of actually physically, how does somebody get through the particular process or the journey or whatever it is you're trying to do. I'm going to talk about how you can go through this yourselves within your own businesses. And to start with, as if I possibly haven't won you all over, which I'm sure I haven't, I want to give you some financial things to think about as to why, as if the kind of ideological side of it and my passion doesn't get you over the line, hopefully the numbers will. What I've got here is a fictitious, completely made up profit and loss account, okay? And we're going to start with, I'm going to try and use my cursor here to show you, we're going to start with on this column here, the second one across, and let's imagine we've got this fictitious business, it's totally made up, and we've got a revenue line of £1,000, okay? And from that revenue line, we need to do certain things. So we've got a variable cost A and B. Let's imagine we need to buy some materials, maybe some teaching aids or whatever, and we've got a variable cost B, let's say that's some teachers. Okay, so really, really, really basic made up thing. We've got £1,000 of revenue. We've got 300 quid of variable cost A, as in 30%, £500 as in 50% variable cost B. We're making a gross profit of 20%. That's £200 in this example. However, we have administration costs in this business. You've got your head office, you've got your IT, you've got your marketing, yada, yada, yada. Let's say that costs us £100, which means our net profit, our bottom line when we've spent all these various costs before tax is 100 quid. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Let's say COVID comes along and COVID has had a negative effect on your business. And let's say that you've seen a repression of, in the second column across, 50% down. In other words, our sales are half, they're reduced by 50% to what they were before COVID has come. Now, the good news is our variable costs also decreased by half, because probably your venue hire in the case of kids activity, maybe your teachers, they're not required, you don't need to pay them. Fantastic. So your £500, yes, you're down, but you've halved your variable costs and you've halved your labour, so your materials and labour are half, which means your GP has halved to £100. However, that administration cost typically won't be able to be reduced very easily. It's typically not as elastic. I know we've had furlough and all that other kind of stuff, but on a very basic level, it typically stays static no matter how many volume you do. So in that instance, with 50% down, you go from making £100 profit to zero. If we then go to 75% down, or even worse, you then move into a loss-making situation, because those kind of admin costs that are kind of around your neck, they're like a noose around your neck, they're there no matter what. And this is probably what many of you have experienced in your own business and I'm sure have caused you a lot of anxiety in the last few months, as it has myself. So what do we do about it? Well, we've got a couple of options. One, we increase revenue. Great idea, not that practical with COVID. Maybe you've diversified. Maybe you've done that vomit-inducing word of pivoting. Maybe you've started selling product or something like that. If you have, hats off to you, fabulous, great job. Is it enough? Might be, but that's quite tricky. You could potentially reduce your variable costs. So if we were a factory, for example, you could potentially have a new bit of machinery that's more efficient, but typically that requires quite a lot of capital outlay. So those kind of things can be quite difficult. You could pay your staff less. Not a great look in COVID, bit of a PR disaster, and you might be a bit of a B. So let's probably not go that route. So realistically, the obvious place you're going to be looking at is your admin costs. And there's a double benefit here. There's not just the fact that you can potentially cut the costs, which we're going to come on to in a bit, but you can actually really improve the customer experience. And it's a bit of a double-edged sword. So if it was me, where I'd be lasering my focus on right now in COVID, if I was going to look at all different parts of the business on the basis that COVID's going to end at some point, is I'll be looking at the administration costs and trying to reduce that. So here's what we need to do. We need to review every single process systematically and actually walk it through like a customer. And one of the best ways to sort of do this on a kind of example basis is how you make a cup of tea. So if you think about how you make a cup of tea, there's a whole, this is where we get a whole argument about, do you put the milk in first or the sugar first, all this kind of stuff. But if you think about the steps that are required, you need to go back, not just to the point of you've got, you're pouring your water and your tea bag and your sugar and your milk and you're stirring it. You go right back to, well, when do I turn the kettle on? Where's the kettle come from? Where's the milk? Like, is it already in the fridge? All that kind of stuff. And it's actually thinking about, like, literally step by step by step in minute detail. What are the individual steps my customers go through to do whatever it is, to book, to receive certain information? And then what you can do is you can start to map that out in like a schematic, which I'm going to show you in a second. And the thing to bear in mind is time is money. Even in seconds, when you start to extrapolate that up to hundreds of customers or thousands of customers or tens of thousands of customers, it really becomes a huge, huge, huge source of money. And we're going to show you in a second some really specific examples of how that works. And the one thing I would ask you to think about, and this is what I'm very good at because I'm a bit mad, is asking obsessively, why? Why are you asking a customer to fill out that form? Why do you need their date of birth? There may be a legitimate reason. I'm not saying there isn't, but literally every question, why? Why do you need to know their address? Do you need their postal address? Are you posting anything? And really think about it, because you could probably cut quite a few steps out. So when you walk through this is a very hardcore one, just a bit of it. You can end up with something like this. We call them process maps. There's different sort of school of thoughts about how you do it. But you can see here, this is our website finder when we designed it. And we literally go through, well, the customer goes on the site. They click find a class. They choose a class. Then a start date, then they log in, and we literally work through every single sort of iteration and options and choices and cut them down. And this thing, if I could ever show you the real thing, would probably paint an entire wall. It's enormous. It's just a snapshot of it. But it really is a very powerful tool, even at a basic level, even on the back of an envelope, to help you break down your processes step by step. So I'm going to show you an example of going through this process and a before and after, and then take you through what it can mean from a monetary point of view. Let's take something really simple. Okay, I'm not going to talk about any advanced automation, any sort of AI crazy stuff. Okay, super simple. Here's my task. I want to book a client into a session on using a phone. Okay, no online booking. I've got a client on the phone right now, Mrs. Miggins. She wants to get her daughter into a swim lesson. Okay, so I'm happy to share with you that our old system, the legacy system that I inherited with Swimtime before I did some of our magic, it took us between 10 and 12 minutes to book a client in on the phone. I don't know how that compares to some of the people watching this, but that's what we were. And when we did some research with other sort of operators generally, and where we wanted to do a bit of benchmarking, we found that the market leaders were around about 7 minutes in total. And I said, well, if you can get a car insurance quote or WeBuyAnyCar.com quote in 60 seconds, I don't see any reason you can't book a bloody swimming lesson in 60 seconds. And that is the target that we set ourselves to do it. So I'm going to show you how it's done. So imagine we've got the client on the phone, and we would go into our phone booking widget on our system, and we type the client's name in. I've had to blank out for security till I get to this fictitious chap. This is one of my team, Ryan. You would select the customer. We can check the details that they've got the children and grab the appropriate child. And then it automatically knows venues that are nearest to the individual. It automatically knows the sessions that are running nearest the individual and the availability. And then we can just drop them straight in. And now they're in what we call our waiting list. We now need to do the second part of the process, which is actually onboarding them from the waiting list. So we just find them, do a tick. And now we can discuss with them the various start dates, and we could be very granular and say, well, actually, do you want to do this, 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 and this? Or alternatively, we could actually select all of them if we need to, as we are here. And then we go through to the pricing pane here. The system automatically tells us the price, but we can apply discounts at this stage, anything that we need to. We've got a card on file, and we just charge instantly to that card. And that takes as quick as 60 seconds. And it really is a remarkable thing for our business. So some of you are probably sitting there going, so what? So what? I'm booking in 7 minutes. It's fine. Why does it matter? I'm going to tell you why it matters. Do the maths. So let's just say, for argument's sake, that I'm absolutely talking a load of baloney, and there's no way that I ever can do in 60 seconds, and I'm exaggerating and I do it in 2 minutes. I'm not, by the way, but I'll give that. And let's say person who's challenging this says, yeah, actually 7 minutes, the average that you do, a load of rubbish, I actually do it in 4. So let's just say my system takes half the time. In other words, it's 50% quicker than an alternative, which is not the case, but let's just do this. Let's say you have 1,000 customers and you enroll 4 times a year for your service. Run those numbers in a calculator, you will find out that equates to 133 hours of wasted time. So if you charge, or we pay somebody, I don't know, 20 quid an hour admin time, maybe you don't, maybe that's a bit much, but seems to be a bit of a going rate. That's going to be 2,300 quid a year on that process alone. And that's before we talk about the other stuff. That's before we talk about the fact that, does a customer really want to spend 7 minutes on a phone to you booking something in? Maybe they do. Maybe you offer a listening service. Some people do. I know ours probably wouldn't. Think about the professionalism. Think about the image, all that kind of stuff. It really makes quite a difference. But that's on quite a small example. Now, when we go back to what we said earlier, you remember this P&L we did, this thing we did earlier where we said, well, if it's 50% down and you're 75% down, you haven't got that kind of flex, that elasticity in the business. Let's rerun that same formula, and let's say we've cut our admin costs by 50%. Just think about the difference to the business. There we go. So park the how things were. Let's say we're in columns sort of 3 and 4 here, which is the COVID situation. You've suddenly gone from, if your business is down 50%, you've gone from, and if I flick it back, so you've got a frame of reference. Remember, we were break even at 50% down and we'd lost 50 in inverted commas at 75% down. We've suddenly gone from still making profit at a business that's 50% down to break even at 75% down. So you've gone from really sort of quite dire situation to actually a bit more flexibility. But the magic is when you turn the wick back up, when COVID goes away, which it will, because we're all being optimistic, it definitely will, we've got a vaccine, praise. Suddenly our profit has gone up 50%. We've gone from making 100 in our fictitious example to 150. So this rethinking, this sort of programming with this methodology isn't just for now, it isn't just for COVID. This is about transforming for your future. It's about making it so much more profitable and exciting. So where this gets amazing is where you scale this up. So we've just talked about one process, and we've looked at a very simple thing, which doesn't need technology, by the way. You don't need to go away buy a simple system necessarily. This could be something that you can just do by rethinking your business and how your processes are working. But let's start adding this up, right? So this is where it blew my mind when I went through some of this stuff. We've got the columns across the top of different numbers of size businesses. So maybe you've got 1,000 customers, 5,000 customers, 10,000 customers. And there might be different people on the call who've got different ranges of that. But similarly, how many minutes you could save out of a process I've got going down the rows there on the left-hand side. And you can see the sort of things where this matters. Even if you've just got a relatively small amount of customers, say 1,000 customers, and you can get 10 minutes out of your admin processes across the board, not just booking, just generally, just cut 10 minutes for every customer a year out of that process. You could say potentially 650 plus hours a year. That's nearly 13 grand at 20 quid an hour of cost. I mean, these are big numbers. And start to get to the size of business that Swimtime is, and we've got 20,000 swimmers and we've saved hours of time. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of cost savings. It's absolutely game changing for our business. I cannot stress this enough, how much this transforms everything about how your business is and the impact on your viability and the expansion plans. It's absolutely remarkable. So as you can probably tell from my passion, for me, it's not just something that, oh, it's sexy, it's pretty, it's whizzy, it's flash. No, this is the difference between whether you make it or you don't. Like, I genuinely believe that, because the world is moving in this direction. We're fighting different types of things for our children's time and our customers' time, and they want easy and quick. And if we don't move with this as a sector, we are going to lose out. I promise you we will, because, the gaming industry and, whether it's going to the cinema or going to the theatre or, I don't know, going to a skate park or trampolining, all this kind of thing, these guys have nailed this. And some of us are a bit behind. So the other thing I wanted to share today, not just some philosophy, but some things that you actually take home with you kind of relatively easily, is that as your business grows, things do get a bit more complicated. And there's other sort of technologies that you can get off the shelf that can really, really help. And we've found, particularly with COVID, have been absolutely transformational. And again, I'm really happy to share. And again, I'm really happy to share our statistics. We had, once we were able to relaunch lessons, the government announced it mid-July. You can see the dates at the bottom there. In 3 days, from the 20th of July to the 22nd, we had, you see the top there, nearly 3,000 customers hammer us in 3 days trying to book lessons. So just think about trying to do that over the phone, like the thought of trying to, the manpower, the human capital required to serve 3,000 customers who wanted to get back into lessons, we would have just imploded. The system did it all for us. And you can see on the right-hand side, at one point, we had 138 people booking lessons at exactly the same time. It was eye-watering, and it was almost a tear of pride when it all sort of did its job. But even getting out of COVID, it's such a changeable thing, you know, to have this facility behind you. So coming on to the customer service, and this is kind of where things can kind of really be improved by a relatively small change. You might have come across this term before. I'm sure Andy in some of these sessions have covered this, and the other speakers, but you might have heard of things called channels, where you have communication channels, and these are just different ways people communicate. So I've got some examples on here on the screen: the phone, email, booking system, whatever. Okay, lots of different channels, and unfortunately, millennials, God bless them, and even worse, Generation Zs or Z, they seem to use more and more obscure and, you know, odd ways of communicating, like Instagram messages and WhatsApp and whatnot, and it can be very, very difficult keeping on top of them. And we found this with Swimtime. It was very, very difficult giving consistent levels of service across the brand with all these different channels. There is a solution which you can buy off the shelf that doesn't come from us, and it's something called omni-channel solution. And if you Google that, you will see loads and loads and loads of providers that are major corporations that provide this kind of service. And essentially, it funnels all of those channels into one pipeline and one list. I'm going to show you in a second what it looks like, so that you can actually take somebody line by line by line and sort of go through. And it has been an absolute game changer for us. We use something called HubSpot. And one of the things that we did as part of this process was completely simplified our website. And if you go on our website, you'll notice that actually there's not much on there. And the reason that we did this was we looked at some Google Analytics data, and we found that 90% of people did one of three things. One, they wanted to find a lesson. Two, they wanted to get on their account. And three, they wanted to find support. That was it. I hate to break it to you, and I was obsessed, as I'm sure you're going to be with this news. No one cares where you're from. No one cares about the founder. No one cares who your team are. They don't care about any of that. They just want to consume the service. We looked at the data, and that's what it said. And so with our website, we redesigned it. We were like, right, well, if that's what everyone wants, let's put that front and center. So you'll see at the top there, one big button, find lessons. Button number 2, go to your account. And then if you click on the blue bar, which pops out like that, 3, support. Simple. Reduce the friction, simplify it. That's what people want, give it to them. And the key thing is that support button. And we use something called a knowledge base, which again, some of you may have come across. And this is our Swimtime knowledge base. And it's not something we've developed ourselves. We use HubSpot, which is quite an expensive provider. There are different providers in the market that offer different prices. Just Google them, there's loads of them. But essentially what this enables us to do is create articles and it's kind of like an intranet, but much better, where you have a host of information to help the client sort themselves out. So for example, I put a question in there in the bar, are my lessons on? And it goes straight away to a COVID page. Similarly, we've got a chatbot, which does use a bit of AI, and that's a computer that talks to our customers and tries to help them out, to help them find their problem. And the idea behind this is we want to reduce the contacts as much as possible unless somebody really wants to speak to us. And to be clear, whilst you're sitting here probably thinking, oh, Jesus, I don't like the sound of that, we still publish phone numbers. You can still phone us, but they don't. They want to do this. And they could do this 24/7. They could do this at 3 a.m, maybe when they're nursing a young baby. Get on your phone and do it. Easy. So to show you what an article looks like, here's an example of a COVID-19 article. And we've been updating this as often as we need to throughout this whole crisis. And we've got some summaries at the top, and we've got some videos and other information down the bottom. So we did a video, for example, about what it would be like to come back to swimming lessons, where we actually filmed the fact that the changing rooms were a bit different and that we would be socially distanced and all that kind of jazz. And we use this rather than having to email customers all the time. We just tell them to look at this page. So we've saved ourselves a bucket load of work, and all we do is we just update this constantly with changes like the latest lockdown or tier restrictions. This just gets updated all the time. And then what we can do is we can monitor the views. So you can see here in the knowledge base, the COVID article has been viewed thousands and thousands and thousands of times, and it's got helpful ratings. So people can actually rate them as helpful or unhelpful, and they give us feedback. And then we use that data to improve the articles, and we're constantly refining them. And we look at things like, well, what kind of questions are coming into our team? And if there's a theme emerging, like, I don't know, maybe the theme's coming like, should I bring my own swimming float? We will then write a specific question about that issue, so that hopefully people can find it first time round, and then they don't need to ask us a question. It's a really simple way of doing it, but it's incredibly effective. Similarly, you can do things like you can look about what people are searching. So you can see at the bottom there, we can see what people are searching, and we can use that to refine things. And similarly, at the top, we can see what people are searching but didn't yield a result. So people were searching particular terms and there wasn't an article. So we refine those and we look at how many people are searching certain things, and we adjust our strategy accordingly. I talked about the pipeline, the omni-channel. This is one here. Okay, so essentially what happens is no matter how somebody communicates with us, apart from phone, whether it's social media, whether that's Facebook, Insta, WhatsApp, text, email, or through our website, every iteration comes up as a line here as a ticket. And that enables our team to drill into them line by line. And that means the team can then work through them all the way through. It's very, very, very powerful. And similarly, when you get with a particular, this is one we've used internally here to show you for this thing, but you can get things like, you can tell when people are open emails, and I can tell you, guys on this call, right, nothing is sweeter than when a customer says, you sent me an email and I couldn't find it, it went into my junk. And you're like, yeah, well, I can see you opened it 3 times. I tell you, it's one of those go and get a gin and tonic moments, have a little sit down. Love putting a customer who's been a bit cheeky in their box. It's very enjoyable. So benefits of this then, massively efficient and saves time. It standardizes service levels for those of you perhaps concerned about are different parts of your business performing differently. You can do all sorts of amount of automation, which I haven't really covered in this session, but those of you who want to know a bit more, I'm happy to chat to you about it offline. So things like, for example, when someone's opened an email, you could trigger a response to happen, like a follow-up email, all that kind of stuff if you wish to. And there's a whole range of cost options. So things to look for, there's HubSpot, Zoho, Zendesk, there's just loads of them. Just Google. There's lots of options, or if you want some recommendations, I'm happy to give anybody some input as well. A simple and free thing that you can do, which we changed, that was really, really, really helpful, was those of you who've got Facebook pages, which I imagine is restricted time. Yeah, I'm good. Which I imagine is most of you. You will have an edit. The main sort of action button in your Facebook page is editable. And one of the smartest things we did was change that to book now, and that linked directly to our booking system rather than having message. And that saved us. The reduction contact when we changed that was huge. So there's something that you can do today for free that, yeah, makes a big difference about the process of where you are. So as I sort of start to wrap up now, I wanted to, just kind of summarize really why I think customer experience should be your sole focus for the next kind of, I don't know, 15 to 18 months or so for those of you who are feeling brave. A couple of things to think about. If you're a franchise business or you've got other partners, they love it. So we, for the first time this year, got our 5-star franchisee satisfaction. That was an independent thing to our franchisees who absolutely love what this has done for their business in terms of the efficiency and the moving forward. I always do this because I always put this in a bit of context, but it makes me look a bit, I don't know. It is genuinely multi-award winning. I was so proud of my team for this, genuinely. We went up against, we're the only SME and the only private company and the only UK company in the International Business Awards. We won against Shell, Turkish Airlines, the Dubai Port, and a Jordanian phone network, the name of which escapes me. We were independently judged for giving the best digital experience that they'd seen that year. It was mind-blowing. We won countless awards for this approach for what it's done for the business. So we're really proud of it. And this is probably what I'm coming on to now. It's the number one thing I get all the time. And I'm sure there's so many people listening to this that are thinking the same. And it really frustrates me. And I don't know how else to make it clearer. People seem to think it is a binary choice between using tech and being personal and soft and fuzzy. The two are not mutually exclusive. Okay, you can do both. You absolutely can do both. I am not saying never speak to your customers. I'm not saying never answer the phone to your customers. It's about using the two together intelligently. And I can assure you, people vote with their feet. If you're unsure, like do a split test, run these two sort of little ideas together and see what people do. Because we partnered with Trustist about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Big shout out to Trustist, by the way, they're fantastic. And we did some customer feedback. And these are what I've got on the screenshots here are genuine. Go on our website and read them if you want. This is not BS, okay? 5-star after 5-star after 5-star. Even I was astonished because, like with COVID, it'd been a bit messy and all the rest of it. I was like, this could be a bit of a scratchy one. I mean, it's unbelievable. Customers love it. They love the convenience. They've even mentioned it in a number of their things. So go and have a look at it. It's all publicly there for people who want to read and call us out on it. So it really does work. I wanted to leave you just with a little sort of cool thing that we did. And one of the challenges that we had with lockdown was, and I think if you remember right at the beginning of my presentation, because we rent space, we don't control the entrance and exits. So with social distancing and kind of verifying who should be in and out of the venue was actually really hard for us. So we devised something called MyPass, which is a bit like the train line ticketing system. And essentially what happens is the system knows the device is linked to a particular customer. And it's not an app, it's using the web. And when they turn up for their lesson, it only goes green exactly 15 minutes before they're supposed to be at a lesson and goes red right at the end. And it's designed to ensure that our venues have only the right people in them at the right time in a socially distanced way. And I've got a really short 30-second video to show you it in action. So last but no means least, this really is the final slide. If I was to summarize my case, like almost like a barrister in a court, okay, for why you should think like this. The economic case, okay, it will save you thousands, I feel it's a dollar sign there, not a pound, sorry, thousands and thousands of pounds / dollars, depending on which jurisdiction you're in, and time. Like it really does transform the economic business. Customers, right? You've just seen the 5-star reviews. Go and look on our website, read them for yourself, or go on Trustist and look us up. Endless 5-star reviews. Customers love it. Industry case, multiple award-winning approach to this. Like the industry's sort of constantly coming back to us and saying, yeah, this is the way forward. Number 4, maybe you're looking at an exit, right? Maybe this isn't your thing, and you realise COVID's been enough, which I understand. A number of people have come to us and said that, right? This adds so much value to your business if you're looking to exit. Our business value is trebled between when we put the system. Between when we started putting this in and now. And finally, with COVID, right, the unexpected will always happen. I know COVID, they say, is a once in a generation event. We don't know. It might not be. It might come back. And the agility this gives you genuinely will save it. So yeah, that's me done. I suppose just want to finish with a massive thank you to Andy and the team. I really believe in this sector. I hope nobody's been too offended or kind of like shell-shocked by what I've said, but I really believe in the sector. I believe in you all. It's such an important part of the economy, such an important part of society, and I just want to bring us all up and get out this strong. So thank you so much, and I think there might be a bit of time for a few questions. So I'll stop my share.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks. Yeah, that's brilliant. Guys, ask questions. A couple coming in just so far. One thing I want to add as well, just quickly there, because obviously, Theo, we started speaking earlier this year, obviously, and we've talked through a few different things, and we share some similar ideas. I think for me, and I spoke this before to a number of people on different talks and just one-to-one sessions, is that for me, and this pains me when I realised it, when it comes to products and programs, that actually the whole unique point you mentioned there, Theo, for me rings true. And it pains me to say that because for years of my career, I was a program developer for kids' activities. And that's what I did. I used to comb through manuals and comb through ways of doing things and that sort of stuff. And it was all important because you need to have a really good product in our market because it's very competitive. But having a good product in the kids' activity sector is par for the course. It's par for the course. But convenience, and I'm going to give an example in just a second, convenience in our sector is not par for the course right now. I think you touched upon that in how this can be a real game changer. And there's a really, really big company who I will not mention, but you will all know of these, big national company who run health centres and gyms, that sort of stuff. So slightly out of us, but they do run activities too. And my two daughters go to like a kind of toddler gymnastics session there. Now they have an app, they have their web development system, that sort of stuff. And we were trying to book on recently to a COVID safe session. And I had to then go, and even though I'd been a customer before, for some reason I had to then go and register again. I then couldn't register both my children under one email address under my name. I had to put a different name on my wife's name and a different email address for each child. Now, this is a big national company. Now, that highlights my point here is that it's convenience right now. That was very inconvenient for me. It was actually quite frustrating. I don't get frustrated too often. I was actually quite a calm guy. I was like, you're kidding me. I can't just add a second child onto my profile, surely. But I couldn't. And that means that for me just shows that even the big national companies right now don't get this right. And the convenience thing is not part of the course. So if you do look at some of the things Theo said, maybe not necessarily the depth of detail Theo does, but if you look at all those different spots and those friction points, those tiny steps and marginal gains you can do to improve customer experience and improve your system and processes, they can potentially be game changing in a very small way and actually give, and I'm giving an actual example for me as a dad now, as a parent booking on of how that's worked for me. So let's go to the questions. That's all right. Let's see.
Yeah, sure.
I'll let you read through, Theo, and you can answer them at your own pace.
Yeah, sure. I think Adam's asking quite a lot. It might be worth, Adam, if you want to chat offline, it might be easier because I mean, I don't really want to do a bit. I'm not going to sit here and sort of go through all the frustrations because it's not very fair. But I mean, the main ones really were, if I was to summarise them, not mobile first, which is a massive thing. I think Andy, I think you picked on that in some previous sessions I watched online last night.
Yeah.
Not being mobile first is an absolute massive one, and also speed in terms of just like physically moving around the platform, like trying to do a task seemed to take like multiple clicks, whereas we try and measure that quite well. Chloe Trustis, I'll drop that. It's Trustist with a T on the end of it. It's a bit of a weird name, but I'll drop a link in a second. Adam, those questions and stuff, but if you want to message me offline, it might be easier rather than sort of for the recording going through all line by line. But yeah, we do all that stuff. Franchise awards, the ones I put weren't franchise awards, they were national awards, sort of as in outside of franchising, outside of kids' activity. So you can just go on the website and apply. Most of them, the ones we've done, you have to pay to enter. That was a choice we made. Chloe, what booking software do I think is doing things well? I'll plead the fifth there, if that's all right. Well, I'm American. Yeah, I mean, Chloe, I wouldn't have done what I've done if I thought things were doing well. I think the only thing I would say, in fairness, it depends what level you're at. And I think, to quote Jensen Button, you want to be on the right tyres at the right time, to use a Formula One analogy. And I think if you're a relatively small operator and you're doing things simply, there are things out there that are absolutely fine and do the job absolutely fine. And I'm sure Andy and many other people would give you some recommendations. So, for what we've done, for example, you need to be a reasonable size for it to be something to be wanting to jump into, just because of the breadth of skills and stuff. Do you have swim teachers back in the water between lockdowns? No, that's against national guidelines unless you're doing this is a special support need requirement. But no, absolutely not. It's against New England guidelines.
All right. Yeah. I think that's all our questions. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. And this is recorded, so when we end, I'll put this up online. It's at the institutecap.co.uk/expert talks to check it out. I probably won't send an email out to everyone for this one unless you're an ICAP member, and you will get an email reminding you, but do check it out in the next few days. It'll be there to watch on replay. And yeah, like Theo said, feel free to reach out to him on some sort of platform. I'm sure you'll find him, and also, you know, you can reach out to me if you can't get details. And he also runs a system called Franscape. I know he hasn't really mentioned much, apart from a brief screen share, and that is primarily for franchisors of different sizes who are looking to implement some of the stuff he spoke about today and have that system embedded in, right? And Theo can talk a lot more in detail than I would do about that, but it's a really impressive system. So do check out Franscape when you get a chance. And it should make no more questions. Thanks. Just thank you there, Theo. All right, guys, have a lovely Friday the 13th of November. Hopefully it's a good day, not a bad day, and enjoy your weekends, and I'll catch you all soon. Thanks, guys.
All the very best, guys. Best of luck. Cheers.